Hello everybody, I'm T-Junkie and I'm back with another video. I know it's been a while, but I should be back now with some videos, just small videos to begin with, just to get back into the swing of things. Now, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to generate level of detail models, to set them all up in Unity, and also if you have, say, purchased a low poly pack, or you work with low poly that you want to set rendering for objects at different distances from the player, I'll set you up a way of doing that through code. Now, as you can see, I've got a model here, which is two models. The first model is a slightly higher poly can, if you will, and the other one is a very low poly version of the same can. Now, I basically just called one LOD 0 and one LOD 1, just for my reference. Now, if we hop into Unity, I've already imported the can, and if I drag it onto the scene, and then I put the material on it, as you can see, I have the can here, and you can see inside the can, if I open up the inspection hierarchy, I've got both the models here. Now, I don't have, because of the way I've done it, it's not imported with the LODs already set up, and this is how you can set it up if you ever run into a problem where you import this and the LODs don't automatically be set up with it. Now if you click can, add a component, and you just go LOD group, and you can see you've got a few. I know I've only got here two LOD versions, so this LOD 2 I'm just going to delete. Now LOD 0, I'm just going to add my LOD 0 to it. Now if I go to LOD 1, if I go here, I click LOD 1 here, click add, LOD 1, and add that to it. Now if I go into my LOD 0 and add the material here as well, there we go. Now I've got both. To smooth out transitions, I am going to say crossfade. Now, as you can see, LOD 0 here, I go 1, it goes here, and it goes cold here. Well, this camera kind of shows what it's going to look like. So from this distance, the can is going to disappear. You can adjust this like this. And this should work fine. This distance will work fine. And that is quite easily how you set up an LOD. I've got an FPS controller in here, so if I click play, as you can see, I get closer to it, and it's gone the higher poly, go a bit away, it's gone back low poly. Of course, you want to fine tune this, so I'd probably want to be here with the low poly version, and it gets high poly when you get to about here. But you can play with this yourself to see how you like it here. Now on here, I've got a bench, not a very pretty looking bench at the moment, but a bench nonetheless. Now I only have one version of this bench, and as you can see, I've got little bevels on the side and everything, and of course when you get over here, or well, you get to here, say, you don't want it rendered. Well, the easiest way of doing this, which you'd not so much do that with a bench, but you want to do that with a can or something small, that something this size you wouldn't want to create a terribly low poly version, something like a little tiny rock or something. Then this is how you do it. Right, in my FPS controller, I've made sure that this tagged as the main camera. That way I can just call it from the script, and I don't have to do any manually add it via the inspector. Now the can, I've set these up, I believe I set these up before, but if you go into layers and you click add layer, you want to add a few layers. So I've got small objects, medium objects, large objects, and decals. We're only going to be using this one for now, but I'm going to show you how you can set up all of these. Now what you want to do is you want to go into your assets, click create C# script, and just call this something like camera distance culling will do. Now if we open that up in Visual Studio, right, we don't need much code for this. We need a reference to our camera. So if I do private camera, just call this P camera, so it's a player camera, and in the start function I'm just going to say P camera is equal to camera dot main, and this when the script starts, it is going to load this camera because it's tagged as the main camera. Once this is done, you're going to need to take note of, if you go into your layers here, you need to keep note of the number on these layers because we're going to use those now. Now if we set up a private float, and this is going to be an array of floats, and I'm just going to call this distance, and I'm going to say it's equal to a new float with 32 in the array. You can technically have this as I believe the highest on mine at the moment. The highest is 11, yeah, so I could technically say it's 12, but for justice I'm just going to say 32, that way it adds all these, because you're going to have layer 0 is technically 1, so this would be technically 32. So this is just how integers work. This is just saying I've got a layer I've got 32 layers. Now in here, we're not going to call all 32 of these, but what we are going to do is we're going to call 4 of them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say distance, and in this array, I'm going to the number which corresponds to the layer I have. So 8 on my layers is the small objects. So I'm going to equal that to, I'm going to say 10 units away, it will disappear. So after 10, so the layer 8, after 10 units away from the object, it's going to disappear. And we can just copy this now, and copy it more times. So here we've got 9, here we've got 10, and here we've got 11. And as you know, this is decals, so decals can be 10. I'm going to set this to 15. I'm going to set this to 25, and I'm going to set this to 40. I'm just going to save this, and then, sorry, I forgot something. And then under here, what you need to do is say pCamera dot layer call distances equals distance. Save this, and what this basically means is the camera, which we've said is going to be the main camera, layer call distances, which is at what distance does the camera call that layer, so it doesn't show up anymore, and it's going to be equal to the distance. So each of these variables here is going to store these in the distance array. Now if we go back to the game, and then we select the can here, I'm going to say this is small, and I'm going to change the children, and the bench, I'm going to say this is medium. Now if I go into the game, and if I back away from the bench, did I actually save that? Do medium objects. Oh, I set it to 40. Let's say 25. are you not disappearing? Oh, I know what I've done wrong. Because I forgot to because I completely forgot that 0 is technically 1. So now it should be set up right. I believe that's correct there. Why are you not working? Oh, I know why it's not working. I was completely silly. If I go to my FPS controller, and then I've got to add the script to the camera for it to actually work. And then I've got to go back into here and set it back, because that is not right at all. There we go. That's why it's not working. Sorry, it's like 2 in the morning here. Right, so now what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you that this, as you can see, I've got a box collider on here. Now for this can here, I am just going to get these two LOD groups here, create a mesh collider. I'm going to have them convex, and basically what I'm going to do is, because this is a rigid body now, I don't think it's a rigid body, never mind. Like I said, 2 in the morning, I'm going to add rigid body. Rigid body, there we go. I don't care about this to begin with, all I need is this just to fall. So if this falls now, yep, it just dropped down to the floor. Now this is to show that doing this method as well works kind of like LOD grouping. And what that basically means is, if you were to set it up as, say, the closer you get to an object, you instantiate it, and then when you get further away, it deletes the object, and when you come back, it instantiates it again, which is a very, very bad way to do it. I've seen some people do that, and it's completely awful. And what basically happens there is, say you've got a can like this with a rigid body on it, so when it drops it rolls around on the floor. Well, if you were to do it that method, but when you get close to this, you would have, say, this object wouldn't be rendered or drawn at all. It wouldn't be even in the game. So what would happen is, when this renders, it would drop, hit this bench, and then when you go run away from it and it deletes this, it will fall straight through the bench, you come back and it redraws it again. And then this can here will be underneath the bench for some bizarre reason. I've seen some games do this. It's not very performant. It's much easier just to use LOD groups. And as you can see, Unity has a little handy tip here saying LOD. Now this script also works kind of like LOD groups as well. And basically what it is, it just completely disables the mesh of the object without actually disabling the colliders with the object. So if I go back here, and as you know, this LOD group here has this can has a rigid body on it. So if I go further back, and the bench is gone, the can's gone, it's not being rendered. If I was to pause it now, you can see the can is still in the scene and the bench is still in the scene. If I go back into the game and I come back here, it pops in and the can pops in. So if you have rigid bodies that are sat on top of these objects, the rigid body still won't fall through the object because the box collider is still there. It just disables this part of it, which is rather performant. Now in my next video, which I should have out tomorrow, what I'm going to show you is a way of having, I'll have a little UI here, and with the different limits, so you can manually change yourself. This will show you, so basically if you want you can put it in a game and have, say, the user dictate or what distance you see things. So you might see in games that you have a slider for view distance. It works on a similar principle, and I'll show you how to implement that in your game. So you can have this set up with this with all your objects on layers, with this simple script which has not many lines of code in it at all. It's just this. How you can have this improve the performance of your game completely. There is also another way you can do it, is you can dynamically batch. And if I go into game and stats, you see here you've got Shadowcaster's calls, you've got save by batching here. And the easy way to do that is just, I believe it's this easy, is you just create a game object, you shove that in there, and then you can duplicate this like 4 times, get a game, and if you run it, I think I'll need to set up dynamic batching. Oh, whoops. And I believe you go to here, build settings and player settings and graphics, no. There is in here a way of setting up dynamic batching. There's literally just a tick box. They might have removed it in the newer version. Dynamic batching, there we are. It's in player, in your project settings, dynamic batching. Once you've got that enabled, done, save a batch of 17. Straight away it's found that I've got all my low poly models in this scene use the same material, which is this texture atlas I've got, and I've got loads of different models with loads of different LODs, and what it's done is it's saving memory by adding all these draw calls together, and this is very performance. This improves your performance a lot as well by doing it this way. Right, I hope I've managed to help some people, and I'm sorry this is a really early video, so it's been quite eventful, but we got there in the end. That's what matters. And as you can see, log group here, if you really want, you can grab the can here, drag it into your assets, and click an original prefab, and it creates a prefab of it. So I could just drag this can, and it has the LOD groups on it everywhere. And as you can see, LOD 1, these are LOD 0, because of the distance from this camera, scene camera. And you can test out all your LODs by doing it this way. And hopefully I've managed to help people that have, say, if you've got a big building that you don't want to disappear, or even, you know, like say you're creating a battle royale game and you've got loads of buildings everywhere and you want them buildings disappear and they're really, really far away, this is a way of doing it as well, by putting a script on your camera. But I hope it helped, and I shall see you in the next video. Goodbye.